thank you so much. I thought I'd start with this story of a person I met who read the book and then contacted us because today I'm hoping we're going to actually sign a project with them. So the person is a user experience background, similar to me. And he works at a company that manages lighting. So if you think of high-end lighting, like when you go in and there's a mood set because of the lights and the curtains, he works at that company. And the company was founded by an inventor. And so this gentleman had this vision for creating a lighting company where through dimmers, switches, and through kind of choreographed lighting, you could create moods in huge houses and commercial spaces. Made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and his daughter took over the business. One of the decisions that the daughter made was to make the lighting do-it-yourself. So she commissioned a project where the product would be delivered and sold at Home Depot. And if you have a lighting switch, you may have this brand's lighting switch. And that was fantastic. The sales went up. However, the original mission of the company that her father had wasn't being fulfilled because his vision was to create kind of custom lighting for very big scale kind of emotional reactions. And what she had done is taken that magic and put it in a switch and sold it on Home Depot. Those sales of the Home Depot product went up, but one of the things that also happened is contractors bought a bunch of switches and then did the same thing that the company had originally done. So they would buy 20 switches and figure out a way to kind of hack and create the events that the larger company used to do with custom electricians. So these electricians were trained, they had gone through a certification, they could charge $100,000 for this lighting. This is $10.99, and a contractor at $15 an hour. And so what these guys were doing is taking the switches and kind of hacking away into creating these lighting events. And so we were brought in by the company to say, solve this problem. Would you agree that this is a problem? So I'm the only one who doesn't agree. I think it's fantastic. It's an opportunity, right? And a lot of times with design thinking, which is where my background is, in the field of user experience and design, you think of a problem as a problem. And you think, well, I'm screwed. Right, so this is happening over here, and this is what I wanted, and these things are not coming together, and I don't really know how to make them come together. But actually, in design, you look for problems, because then what else would you work on? Right? So you look for problems and you call them opportunities. And a big premise of the book, the reason why it's called Reframe, is to help you take a problem that you have in your business world, something where maybe the sales aren't as high as you want them to be, or the human resources are causing a problem because we all know humans can cause problems, or you aren't getting the flow or the exact customer journey that you want people to have, to take that problem and reframe it as an opportunity, which sounds fantastic in theory, and I do appreciate academia and theory. I teach at Parsons, but one of the things that I really wanted to do in the book and with my company is make this very practical. Design thinking has been around. It can be a bit heady, and so I'll take you through a couple of the steps, but the steps were written in the book to take you from, I have a problem, to I have a couple really great options to solve this opportunity. The first step is often the problem isn't the problem. So for some of you, when I said, is this a problem, you already said, no, it's not a problem. You've already kind of tackled the first one, which is know your problem and know if it's really a problem. There's a couple micro steps to this, but often just phrasing it in the form of there's this thing that's happening, there's this goal, and there's this so that consequence can help you see, wait, actually, there's some room in here for ideas to emerge. A lot of times when you think of a problem as the company's going down, I'm not doing what I said to do, it's hard to come up with ideas. If you say, wait, I actually have more electricians without having to pay for training, that's kind of interesting. Or wait, I just have now a C class in my Mercedes that I didn't expect before, and I can upsell them up to my higher margin car. That's kind of interesting, right? So the way you see the problem right at the first step is going to dictate whether you're going to be able to come up with solutions. The next step is to look at the problem from a different perspective. And again, this is all in the book. I'm just going to take you through it at a high level. So the two ways to do it. In user experience, we often talk about something called an empathy map. And what that means is instead of looking at the problem from the business side, you look at the problem from the consumer side. Right? So taking this awesome space here, you would look at it from a person who's coming in to use an aqua bike. And what is their experience? What do they hear? What do they see? What do they feel? And if there's anxiety because this is my first time in a class, or if I hear everybody's friends and I don't really know anybody, or if I see all these really toned people and I'm trying to lose weight, those can impact the customer journey, right? So we use an empathy map to help us understand how a customer sees a problem. It's helpful. However, a lot of times when you're asked to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, what you're really doing is taking your really nice shoes and putting them in somebody else's shoes, and you're still seeing the problem from your perspective, but like kind of not. And so what we made up is something called a problem-empathy map. And what that means is you look at the problem from an inanimate object's perspective, like the bike downstairs, or the switch in that previous example. And the reason why this is a bit more effective is you've never done that before. Right? So you force yourself to use your powers of observation, which is a critical part of user-centered design. Not listening for what you want to hear, but seeing and observing where there might be a need. And so when you look at it from the switch's perspective, switching back to that example, you would say, I want to create moods, but it's not that complicated. It's on, off, and in between. Or I want to be choreographed with other places in the house, but if you put me next to my twin, we can do that without a lot of complication, right? And so you're starting to see that from a light switch's perspective, some of the problems that you thought were problems are actually different kinds of problems. It's really a matter of like, how do I design more wall space so I can get more switches in the same time? I really want to be installed, but the electrician doesn't read the instructions that came with me and is screwing with me. And so when you start using words like this, what ends up happening, hopefully you're seeing, is that the first side is the opportunity to come up with ideas, right? But the electrician is not using my installation guide is a way that we can make this easier. But I really don't want to be complicated. I just want to be next to my twin is a way that we can make this easier. We don't need to overcomplicate this. By looking at it from the problem's perspective, you can start seeing where there might be ways to fix the problem. Okay, so we see where, but we still don't have a solution yet, right? The third step, and I'll stop after this, and feel free to ask me questions, is to ask what if. So what if is a question that we all used to ask when we were 4 and 5 and 6 years old. I have a 5-and-a-half-year-old. He asks a lot of what if questions all day, it feels like. But somewhere along the way, your parents, teachers, colleagues, bosses tell you to stop asking what if. Stop asking and just do your job. A lot of us, because we chose entrepreneurship, decided that we wanted to ask it again. But we ask it in a negative way. What if I fail? What if I can't? What if is a very powerful creative opener. It can also lead to great ideas. What if a switch wasn't a switch, but a way for you to use hand movement to change the light? What if by saving $90,000 on my light switches, there's actually opportunity for me to spend in some other place that this company could disrupt in. It opens up opportunities if you let it. So our step 3 is to ask what if with your team. And this is a really important part. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we think that we have to solve all the problems ourselves. However, there are some really great ideas existing in your team, including the interns that you don't pay, including the front desk, including the person who used to work here. And they've been wanting to tell you, but they don't know how. And so this technique offers them an ability to level the playing field where the loudest person doesn't win and you don't win because you're the entrepreneur, because everybody has Post-it notes and everybody writes down as many what-if questions as they can to solve the problem. The first couple times, I'll warn you, they'll have like 1 or 2. Creativity is like a muscle. It's kind of weak when you haven't used it in a while. So they won't have that many. Now, these days at my company, each person has 25. So you have 3 minutes and you're working the muscle. You're just making it stronger. But you'll hear some good ones. Like, what if you didn't compare yourself to your father? Would come out. Some of these issues are deep. What if you would just let go of the $90,000 mood thing because nobody really wants that? What if you think you're training your electricians, but really they're starting their own companies and they've been wanting to do that for a while. You were just fighting against a force. You hear these, in addition to what if you put the 2 nice light switches together. So you do it for 3 minutes. Like I said, keep your expectations low the first couple times you do it. It will get better and better. And I'll force it. So you do it 3 times. So the first time you'll do, and people will give you some of these answers, you'll read them out loud. There's a way to do this so that it facilitates good brainstorming. So basically, we'll go around in a circle. If I have the same one you have, I say +1. If I like the one you had and I didn't have it, +love. That's all I'm allowed to say. right? And so we've created a language that facilitates easy brainstorming. You do it 3 times. I will warn you, your team will put their pen down. They'll stare at you, like, I don't have any more ideas. Push them. There's no more ideas to improve this. Like, we all think this is a problem. Remember step 1, we agreed it's a problem. Step 2, we looked at it from a different perspective. We all want to solve this problem. Just try. Just try. One more. Just try. And what, again, you're doing is like a coach, like a leader, building their creative muscle. And so what you'll end up with, especially with a team with strong creative muscle, is a lot of ideas. And then steps 4 through 8, take those ideas and bring them down to a couple core sets. We bring it down by a step called funnel vision, which is basically, let's say your solution, you have constraints, right? So I only want to spend $10,000 on this solution and I need to implement it tomorrow. Probably familiar constraints for this crew. Fine, some of those ideas will be there. To switch how you think about your relationship with your father, you can do it in 5 seconds, right? It's possible to do. So some of these things will filter through that funnel of it has to be cheap and it has to be done immediately. Okay, fine. Those problems then get plotted and you'll end up with the set that you can focus on to solve your problem, which is really the opportunity. This is stuff that we've been doing for a long time. We had a lot of fancy words to use it so that we could charge a lot of money to do it. The book brings it down to frame words like what if, problems, opportunities, because these are things that people understand. And really, it's the child of me as a designer and me as an entrepreneur. I really looked at this as like, how do I apply what we do in design thinking to improve products and apply it so that people can improve their businesses? So that's pretty much the book. I can answer any questions that you'd like, but in a nutshell, I hope it helps. I would love to hear from you if you do read it, and if you need advice of how to run the workshops, obviously that's a quick 15, 20-minute call that I'm happy to do. That's it. Thank you, Juan. Yeah. So my business is built on the large companies. Like, most of our work is in the Fortune 1000 space for probably the obvious reason, right? So what I've told them is essentially growth happens in stages. Like, look at your children again. They didn't just grow on a linear path, and they didn't grow without a couple hiccups along the way, right? They look funny with their buck tooth, and they look funny with their braces. Like, there's some ugly periods that go on. Same thing's going to happen with growth of anything. So this is a 2 or 3 year process. Our strategy is train the trainer. So what we do is we come in and we take the core set of 20 people who already have drank the Kool-Aid and read the book and know me, and they know basically we're going to make something awesome happen. Train those 20 people. Those 20 people then go back to their product teams and lead these kinds of workshops with the product teams. Initially, you have to run these workshops and be a bit more rigid in how you're doing it, just like in a workout. Right? In a workout, let's just say it's January, some of us have gone to the gym. You can't just go and figure out whichever machine you want to do and then do it. Later you can, right? Later you can decide, I want to work on my quads and know what you're doing. At the beginning, just follow the class. Follow the trainer. And so run the workshops at the beginning. But what we're seeing already is that things like what if, +1, plus love. Remember, I'm a designer, so I designed this technique. It starts getting people to understand what I mean. So one of the steps in the book that I didn't talk about is excuse personas. It's these things that you have that prevent you from listening to ideas. So for example, I'm a brat. They all start with B and S because they're BS. It's like my favorite part of the book. So a brat is somebody who judges the idea immediately. A lot of entrepreneurs are brats. A lot of senior management are brats. So that's not a good idea. We can't do that. That would cost too much money. How do you know? Did you actually do any cost-benefit analysis? Did you do any market research? You don't know, but you quickly dismiss it. So part of what we're doing now, when you say, well, what if we charged $7,000 for that? What if disarms the other person from their excuse persona because you've done this so often? Sean and I were having a conversation. He's here from my company, and he said, I forgot the exact topic, but it was, what if we sent, this email? And he said, they won't read that. And I was like, okay, brat. And he's like, all right. And that's the conversation, right? Because you have this lingo that's like, are we doing something great or not? Because if we're doing something great, we can't let things like those excuse personas or a lack of ideas stop us. Those seem like silly problems to me, right? Those are opportunities. So we have a strategy. This whole thing was built on working in the large sector, but I like the wins as well. So I talk to entrepreneurs because the entrepreneurs are the ones that call me in a month and they've solved the problem. The other ones are like 3 years. Their kids grow up faster. Their kids grow up faster. They have a little bit more momentum and they have a little bit more fire and they kind of understand it because it was written from the half of me that's an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of nodding and I get it. That's cool. Yeah. Thank you. That was a great question.